Yeah.
Oh, yes, so also under more. Oh, no.
We're good.
Yes.
All right, so it looks like we have a quorum, so we'll call the meeting to order. We're good. Are there any public comment on the agenda items for today?
Yes, I had public comment. This is Freda Tepfer. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I might have some additional comments later. I'm concerned about what is the status of the installation of the APS signals, completion of the signal project on West 26th Street, Highway 20 between Chestnut and Zook Road, I think is what the limits of the project are. There's still no APSs there. I think that the public ought to have access to a document that explains with the Central Bayfront project, where is the funding coming from? There was a press conference lauding all this federal funding as if it was some kind of special thing that came down out of nowhere. And it appears that it actually was a reallocation of the carbon reduction money, which probably could have gone to other projects that couldn't otherwise be funded. And I just feel that the public is not being made totally aware of where all the money is coming from this project as the costs are escalating. In the Central Bayfront project and any of the other projects on the tip, especially those that are involving all pedestrian phase crossings as is contemplated at State and the Bayfront Parkway, roundabouts and RRFBs and other similar type crossings, that those should be done using the latest roundabout recommendations that were recently adopted by US DOT and PennDOT should be using, and also the PROAC, the public right-of-way accessibility guidelines that have been finalized by the US Access Board and are in process of DOJ and DOT finalizing. But these projects should be done in conformance with the PROAC as it in its final form, which is the culmination of over 30 years of recommendations. I think that's really important. There was also something in the it's really hard sometimes in trying to read the project to figure out where some of these things are, but you referred to a project on Pittsburgh Avenue, and it might or might not have been under betterment. But once again, I will stress the urgency for providing sidewalks on Pittsburgh Avenue at the very least from West 21st all the way to 8th Street. This is a highly utilized pedestrian area, and there are not very many sidewalks at all. And I don't understand why there haven't been sidewalks put in by West Erie Plaza that did quite a bit of money. And I might make some comments later on in the agenda. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Freda. Are there any other public comment? Okay, in the packet, have everybody looked at the minutes from our last TAC meeting? We have a motion to accept the minute. In the second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Next on the list is the 2023 to 2026 Transportation Improvement Program. Brandon wasn't able to make it today, so Julia Cornell, are you available?
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So, hi, I'm Julia Cornell from the PennDOT Program Center, and I'm going to talk about the administrative actions that have happened since the last coordinating committee meeting. There weren't any amendments that happened since then. So the first one I want to talk about is administrative action number 3. This was to add several phases to SR 4013 over Elk Creek Bridge project. $14,065, $60,000, and $10,000 in state 185 funds were added to the PE final design and right-of-way phases. And an additional $250,000 in state 185 funds was added to the con phase of the Erie 2022 Bridge Shot Creek Group project. And all funds were programmed in federal fiscal year 2024. And the source was MPMS number 97218, where bridge work was being deferred due to the current condition of the bridge. And the next action I want to talk about is number 4, which is removing the rest of the funds from the project that's being deferred for SR 4101 bridge / I-90 project on the tip. The funds were returned to the Erie Highway Bridge line item. And then the next one I want to talk about is number 11. This was to increase funds to cover the federal aid estimate. $305,000 in federal CRPU funds were added to the con phase of the Bayfront and Cranberry intersection project in 2024. And the source was the Erie Bill IIJA line item. And just to clarify, CRPU funding is Carbon Reduction Program Urban funding, which every planning partner got an allocation of it. And urban areas like Erie also received CRPU funds. And then number 14, this was to add Erie On-Demand Bridge Project 2025 to the tip. $496,500 in state 185 funds were added to the con phase in 2025. And even though, also as a reminder, even though this is a new project added to the tip, it's using state funds, so no need for an amendment. And so that's all the stuff I have for the administrative actions. If anyone has any questions. Okay, and then I just want to touch on the informational items I sent over as well.
Yep.
Yes, that's it. So the number 1 and 2 was to add state Greenlight Go funding to various projects. And that's the first chart. And all funds were programmed in 2024. Administrative action number 3 was to increase funds to cover the low bid cost increase and change HSIP funding to HVRU. And to clarify, HVRU is a form of, it's a subset of HSIP funding, which was dedicated to vulnerable road users, which is non-motorized vehicles, such as like pedestrians and bicyclists. And then the last one is number 4. And this was to advance funds to 2020 federal fiscal year 2023 due to August redistribution. And this was for US 20 Chestnut Street to Imperial Parkway project. And then later on, I'll explain more about what August redistribution was specifically. But then that's all I have for this part, if anyone else has any more questions.
Anyone? Thank you, Julia.
Thanks.
Guess we'll go to the 2025 to 2028 draft tip project list with Courtney.
Yes, so the draft lists were sent out in the format that we had talked about at our last meetings, where the bridges had the BMS number and the VR key so that you guys could look that up on one map if you wanted to see where a bridge was located. And then the roadway projects actually had a link that would take you to the one map so that you could see what section of roadway we were looking at or proposing the work being completed on. And then we had also changed it so this year you could see what year the project was going to be designed and what year the project was going to be let. We have all 12 years, those were sent out. I don't want to bore everyone with going through every project, so I just wanted to open the floor in case somebody had any questions about any of the projects that were on the list.
And just so everyone knows, I went through and highlighted the ones that are carryover and which ones are new on our 4-year tip, because that is what the MPO votes on. The 12 years really PennDOT's plan, but the MPO will have to approve the 4 years. So everything that's highlighted in yellow is a project that is new on our 4-year tip. And everything that's in green is carrying over from our 2023 tip. So everything that is not highlighted is on that 12-year plan, which is PennDOT's plan. So everything that is green, we've already approved on previous tips, and we're just advancing phases, and everything that's yellow is a new project that's being added to the 4 years.
Now, some of those could have advanced from the
Yes.
12-year, right?
Yes.
Okay, I
Yes.
just wanted to make sure when I looked at it. There is one additional new project that would go out for, say, public, it's a line item that we're proposing for the bridge part, which would be a Department Force line item. We were looking at adding $120,000 of state 185 funds onto a line item that would allow for Department Force in county maintenance to go out and repair bridges above and beyond what they could afford to do with their own county maintenance budgets. So we used to do, you would see where it was a Department Force bridge that we were doing. And we would program that. Now, instead of doing the actual bridges, we put it on a line item so that they could do smaller repairs and other things. But we didn't have to, I just put that in there and we didn't have to move any projects around.
Are there any questions for Courtney? The lot.
If anyone does have questions, if you know, you look and you do, just reach out, let me know, and we can address any questions that you guys have on any of the projects. Otherwise, this probably is what we will put forth for public comment in 2024.
Okay, if we can move on to Emily with the draft UPWP.
Sure. So this is our unified planning work program that basically defines what the MPO does for transportation planning. We update it every 2 years. So this is an update cycle that we're in now. Hopefully, most people are pretty familiar with MPO duties such as the Transportation Improvement Program, the Long Range Transportation Plan, annual obligation reports, these types of things, but all of that is defined in the document. It does have to be adopted by the coordinating committee in December. So it will have to be adopted by this group, but it's in draft form now. So if anyone has any questions or concerns, you can let me know right now or email me later to ask any clarification questions or discuss any points about the UPWP before that December 13th meeting. So I wanted to share the draft with this group and just get any input that you would have now on any activities that we're doing at the MPO. Most of it's pretty standard. It's just what we are federally required to do as a planning organization. But if anyone had questions or comments, I'm happy to take them now.
Any questions for Emily? No?
No, okay.
All right. Guess we'll move on also with Emily, the draft Title VI non-discrimination implementation plan.
All right, so one of the things talked about in that UPWP is the MPO has to have a Title VI plan or non-discrimination implementation plan. So ours was a bit out of date. There are some new FTA rules saying that we have to have a public participation plan within our Title VI plan. So this is an updated version of what we had. It updated languages, it updated populations, and it updated our EJ analysis that goes into our Title VI plan. So again, we're looking to adopt this in December. But if anyone has any comments or concerns, you're welcome to voice them now or email me anytime until December 30th. So does anyone have any comments on the Title VI plan?
All right. No questions, comments? We're moving along. All right, the $5 local use fee subcommittee met October 11th. The minutes of that meeting is in the packet. I guess just to summarize, right now we have 10 bridges in various stages that are funded by the local use fee. We also have 4 bridges right now that are funded through the TIP. We have a couple things we need to vote on. There was some cost savings to from the Eder Road Bridge, which was $275,342 in savings. And so we have 2 bridges that needed additional funds. One is the Beeson Road Bridge. And we recommend increasing the funds for the Beeson Road Bridge by $90,574.32. Should we vote on them separately or together?
We can do it separately.
Okay. We have a motion to add the funding to the Beeson Road Bridge from the Eder Road savings.
I'll make a motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
What is the scope of the Beeson Road Bridge project? Just curious. Is it a replacement, rehab?
From a superstructure replacement to a full replacement,
Full replacement?
including abutments.
Oh,
And the 300, the increase would be just for engineering.
Thank you, Courtney.
I just happened to be reading it when you asked the question.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so moved. So we will, the next bridge is Francis Road Bridge. And we are recommending the funds $189,412.16 to be added to Francis Road Bridge.
That one is to change it from a composite deck installation to a replacement of the beams as well as the deck because of rust stains along the joints of the box beams, adjacent box beams. And it's just for engineering as well.
Do I have a motion for? Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so moved to those 2 things. The other thing that the Cockrell Road Bridge public meeting will be held tonight. Jason, do you have any?
Yeah, yes, I do. Good morning, everyone. So, I'd like to thank the Erie MPO for all of their past support on the Cockrell Bridge project, really going back to the demolition days and continuing up to present day. back on February 23rd, we held the first public meeting. And at that meeting, we discussed project alternatives and solicited public feedback. Meeting number 2 will be held this evening from 5:30 to 7:30. Again, that meeting will be in Erie City Council chambers. And the purpose of the meeting will be to focus on the final design of the bridge and construction. So if anybody is so inclined, we certainly encourage you to come out and participate this evening. And we'd just like to just thank you for your continued support.
All right. Any questions about Cockrell Road? So we'll move on to District 1 updates.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. This is Tom McClellan, Assistant District Executive for Design. Thanks for having us again today, and I just was gonna leave it a little open again to keep the meeting moving. If anybody had any comments on any PennDOT type projects, I would like to take a moment to address Fred Atepfer's comments at the beginning on a couple of the projects. I received an update on the 26th Street Signal project. The project was paved here this year. And the signal portion of that project, the signal components are on order. Manufacturing the steel poles and some of that equipment takes a few months. So the goal is to have that materials on site and begin construction in March, April of 2024. So, and those signals will be audible pedestrian signals as well when they're completed. So just clarifying that. Freda mentioned also PROAG, in case anybody doesn't know what that stands for. That's public right-of-way accessibility guidelines. It was adopted, as she mentioned, by the Department of Justice here over the past couple of months. In relation to the Bayfront project, during the design of that project, we actually had the roundabouts of that project peer reviewed by Kittleson and Associates. And they already incorporated some of those guidelines into those roundabouts. The raised pedestrian crossings, for example, for the east-west movements of pedestrians, rectangular rapid flashing beacon lights, and then our signal at State Street. One of the recommendations, of course, with those guidelines is that signals are going to be APS going forward, audible pedestrian signals. So that signal will be APS. So we haven't incorporated everything. I want to be clear on that, but it isn't like we didn't know it was coming. But our PennDOT legal will have to weigh in on all of the guidelines and see what PennDOT, does going forward, because the job was bid out under the older guidelines in our, so it's current to what it was, but we did incorporate some things into it. So I just wanted the group here to be aware of that. We did attempt to kind of foresee some of the changes that could be coming down the pike and making that happen here ahead of time. So any other PennDOT projects anybody has any concerns or questions about? I know downtown Edinburgh, we're going to be paving by the Crossroads Diner here, finishing up that project 99 and 3006. Out in West County, I-90 was completed. It's some of the smoothest pavement. Taking the readings after the project, it's something we're really proud of. So it's got some smooth pavement out there from the milepost 5 to 10, that area. So it was a good construction season. It was a safe construction season. We're always proud about that as well. So any questions on any specific projects at this time?
Hi, I do. Although I am a City of Erie representative, I work in Edinburgh, and you mentioned the Edinburgh project at 6N and 99. Do you have a suggestion when that might be completed?
I believe at the end of the month. I mean, they're putting the final coating of pavement on Thursday and Friday this week, weather permitting. So with that, I think that's the last thing that needs completed on that project. So
Great, I appreciate it. It came up in a community meeting this week, and so I'm pleased to hear that. Thank you.
Yeah, Yeah, we are too. That's been a long project for us as well.
Yeah, it seemed to have longer than it should have been, but I know there's, lots of issues with contractors and so on. So appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I'll just add two things on the I-90 project that Tom mentioned. I don't know if I mentioned them at the last TAC meeting, but we were successful in getting emergency ramp closure gates installed along I-90 on the interchanges that were impacted by that project. That's something, really that we heard from the communities, we heard from fire departments and others, and something that Jim Schott, who's the Erie County manager, was instrumental in getting us to that point where we could move it forward and get those installed. So it's something we'd like to do across 90 at all the interchanges where it makes sense. That's just a gate that allows us to shut off the ramp if we ever need it closed due to an accident or weather conditions or whatever. But we're excited about that new kind of innovation, something new. It just means that you don't need you need less equipment, you need less signs to close it. You don't necessarily need to send maybe a trailer full of signs or a certain number of people to sit there and kind of babysit it. It should be something that frees up resources. Also, I-90 reconstruct finished a year early. So Lindy Paving did a great job on this section that Tom was referring to. It's milepost 3.5 to 10, right? So we had them scheduled to be paving and doing significant work into the following season in 2024, and they really wrapped that up very quickly, which is good for everybody. There will still be a little bit of work to be done on that project, just some guide rail, I think, and things like that next year, but substantially complete. And then I have one other update for just general District 1 information. Our organizational structure is a district executive with 3 assistant district executives reporting to that position. And recently we had one of those spots vacated. So Tom, of course, is the assistant district executive of design. Dax Nolf is for construction, and then the maintenance position is the one that opened up. So we have a new ADE of maintenance. His name's Aaron Fox. Was just announced in the last 2 or 3 weeks, I would say. But anyways, we hope to get him, up to all of our planning partner meetings. So at some point, we'll have him here to meet folks and maybe answer questions about the challenges that maintenance faces, which, like we always say, there's a lot of them. We enjoy a good capital program that we all talk about all the time with the TIP projects. The interstate projects we get extra money from central office. The Bayfront, again, was kind of a lot of discretionary money that allow us to build that project. But maintenance budgets have been relatively flat for many years, and they face a lot of challenges. So a tough time still for them. Go ahead, thanks.
All right, thanks, Brian.
Yeah.
Tom. Next up. My lights went out. I can see, yeah. So is Ronnie Bishop on to give us our federal updates?
She should.
Yes, I am. Can you guys hear me?
Yep. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, no problem. So Emily mentioned earlier the UPWP 1-year update. She did forward that to me at Federal Highways and my counterparts at FTA for our review of the draft. So just wanted to thank you guys for that, and I should be able to return any comments back to you guys next sorry, excuse me, sometime next week. So just wanted to give you an update on that. And then the only updates that I have right now are mainly just some notice of funding opportunities that have come out recently, and some approaching deadlines for some other discretionary grant opportunities. So I can just share those very briefly, and as regularly, I'll follow up with Emily to send this out to everybody so that you guys have, so that everyone has links associated with the information so they can dive in more if interested. So with that, just about a week ago, Federal Highway announced um, the NOFO for accelerating connected vehicle technologies. So this initiative is focused on road safety, mobility, and efficiency through technology that enables vehicles and wireless devices to communicate with each other and with other road infrastructure and provide warnings. So I guess the formal name is Accelerating V2X Deployment. Um, and the application for that deadline is January 17th. And coming up more sooner than that, another NOFO came out, Accelerated Innovation Deployment Demonstration Program. So this NOFO specifically are funds used to promote the deployment of proven innovations that can deliver road and bridge projects more cost effectively. And that deadline is December 12th. So these are similar NOFOs, but different. So the links that I'll provide you guys you'll be able to dive a little bit deeper into that. And just some upcoming deadlines for some current NOFOs that are out there. The Thriving Communities Program, those deadlines are coming up soon. For letter of interest, that deadline is coming up November 15th. And for technical assistance providers, that deadline is coming up November 28th. And then, let me see, there are some other recent publications that Federal Highway has published relating to asset management, roadway classification, public involvement, and traffic reliability. So I can provide those links for you guys to dig into if interested. We have some upcoming webinars coming up this month on equity, freight, and the bipartisan infrastructure law. And let me see, is there anything else? No, that's really it. Just a lot of, information sharing this time around. Um, and yeah, that's all I have from Federal Highways. And if after reading the information, you guys have any follow-up questions or comments, definitely don't hesitate to reach out to me or reach out to Emily, and she can direct your questions to me too.
Sounds good. Thank you, Ronnie.
Yep.
Any questions? Anybody? No questions for you. Next up, we go back to Julia for PennDOT Central Office updates.
Hi. So I just have a couple updates I want to talk about. So the first one is for the transportation alternative set aside and safe routes to school. The final applications were due on September 15th. But the award announcements are expected this year in late winter or early spring of next year. And same as Ronique, I'll send out an email to Emily with links to everything I talk about after the meeting. And then the second thing I want to talk about is the August redistribution. So basically this year, Pennsylvania received an August redistribution allocation of $416 million in extra obligation authority. And that was that action, the last action I talked about for the informational items. And so I just want to clarify that August redistribution is a process where FHWA reassigns obligation limitation from areas that will not use it to states that request more. And basically, obligation limitation is not new funding, but it's the ability to use the funding we've already received through authorization legislation like IIJA/bill. And all the total programmed project funding remains the same. Only the year of the programmed funding has been adjusted for those projects where the funding obligations were advanced. And then the next thing I want to talk about is there's a is for about NEVI. PennDOT is excited to release the draft NEVI Round 1A priority locations map. And I'll send a link to that map, which basically displays the corridor groups that will compete for the Round 1A funding awards. And I'll send out a link to a NEVI resources webpage, which basically covers anything else that you would want to know. And then the last update is for the Multimodal Transportation Fund statewide program, which provides funding for priority investments in any mode through PennDOT's statewide competitive funding program. And they're accepting applications for this from until 4 p.m. on November 13th. And I'll also send out a link with more information about that. And then that's all I have, if anyone has any questions.
Anything? I guess we'll look forward to Emily sending out that information. We can all dive into it then. All right.
Thanks.
Thank you. Next is the Erie Zoo Multimodal Trail Feasibility Study. Who's gonna?
I can just briefly say, there was a public meeting held recently, about a study that's going on. This was, it was funded directly from PennDOT to the zoo to look at a trail around the zoo facility. That material is out online at the moment. You can click the link in the agenda to see that material and submit comments. I believe by November 9th, I believe, is the deadline for that. So it might be tomorrow. So if you have time, take a look at it, submit comments about that study. It wasn't an MPO funded study, but it's still transportation related. So
Thank you. Again, we're can hear any of the public comment? Anyone? No one has comment? Yes, we can. Any other discussion?
I had some additional comments. I was trying to get my Zoom. This is Fred again.
Okay.
Let me get my document. Okay, so I was looking at MPMS 89218 Pittsburgh Avenue, and it said it's resurfacing from 38th to I'm not sure where. But then if you look at the PennDOT 1 map, it shows a red line on Pittsburgh with the red number 4017, and that red line goes from 38th to Pittsburgh, but it doesn't explain where that is, since the MPMS stops before you get to 26th Street, I believe. And again, there is a betterment project for sidewalks, so I'm kind of curious what is going on all the way to West 8th Street. And concerned again about the MPMS 99750, that anything done along 832 should include APS signals. I'm wondering also, what is the status of an APS on Green Garden and 38th, which had been inadvertently eliminated, left off of a project that PennDOT did on West 38th several years ago. And that is an area where a number of users would like to have an APS signal to make it easier for them to use both sides of 38th Street to get from place to place. And I know there's been a lot of work PennDOT has done on 38th, but they never did put in that APS, and that is mystifying to some of us who are concerned about it. I do encourage some kind of, I know there was something I saw about a meeting with the city, but maybe that was over the Cockwood Bridge, but there really ought to be a public, easy to access session so that people can understand what the MPO is doing, what the tip is, what the 4-year tip is, what the 6-year tip is, and what approval of an item on your tips and the other plans, what they really mean in terms of, is that the sole public involvement that's going to go on? I continue to advocate for that. And perhaps somebody who knows more about this project on Pittsburgh Avenue can contact me and tell me what it's about. Thank you.
Thank you, Greta. Is there any other public comment? Any discussion for the group? All right. Any motion to adjourn?
So.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, yes, you can end the meeting. End. And then end.